Okay, check, radio check. Thank everybody for taking time out of their busy schedules to hop on our weekly chat with Chris. Before we get started, a couple things I want to just bring to everybody's attention. We're going to be talking about today Kai-Zen, and Kai-Zen is a unique strategy of premium financing for cash value life insurance. And you'll see why that might be a consideration depending on your age, depending on your resources, depending on all the things that might be applicable to your unique circumstances. This QR code, if you scan it with your phone, just like when you go to a restaurant, will bring you to an interactive page that you can play around with at your leisure, because I'm going to be covering some things that are pretty quick clip because I can't teach you everything that I know all at once. However, there are some fundamentals that we should understand. So Ilya is a proprietary software platform that allows the Kai-Zen strategy to be utilized by the public. So if there's something that you want to participate, reach out to us with questions. But before I get into a deep dive on this, I want to bring you up sort of some upcoming events. So, professional planning services, now that COVID seems to be behind us, we will continue to do educational events here in the near future. So Medicare is one of those areas where, quite often we found in our experience that people have questions. It's complex, it's confusing. What do you do? How's it work? What do you pay for? We're going to go ahead and do a class on Medicare Made Simple. Nothing's going to be sold here. It's purely educational. It's going to be at Mercer County Community College. About 2 months after that, we're going to be talking about a very pressing and relevant subject. You're going to hear us start to talk a lot about long-term care, the risks that are associated with it, experiences that I've had with our clients, a lot of our advisors' clients, and opportunities where people in the past might have thought either A, it was too expensive, or did not have a platform to actually put a mechanism in place to help them protect that. So we're going to start to do a deep dive on long-term care, how to pay for it, because if you know anybody that's either experienced a need for, healthcare in their home or in a nursing facility, assisted living, it's expensive. And the question is, how do we pay for it, right? So we can start to show you strategies that will help you to relieve some of that stress or burden or be efficient along the way. So those are two things that we wanted to bring up. You can check out our upcoming schedules on our website, professionalplanningservices.com, and you can just go and look at upcoming events. So wanted to talk to you about that. Now I'm going to get into life insurance, and I just wanted to put these 2 or 3 slides. I can't do a complete deep dive on life insurance, but what quite often what we'll share with clients is, look, most people have a perception of life insurance that it's only there if you die. And that is just simply not true anymore. If that's the way you design it, then leverage absolutely makes sense. But properly structured cash value life insurance has been around for, over 100 years. So, but now with the innovation and utilization of designs within certain types of cash value life insurance, it can actually be identified as what I call an asset class. So the way that I always sort of educate the public is, look, if you've ever rented an apartment, right? We know that at the end of that period of time, at the end of it, you typically walk away with nothing, right? You get your security deposit and that's it. So most of us want to strive towards home ownership, but most of us can't afford, right, a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 house all at once. So what we have to do is go to a lender to let us borrow the lion's share, and then over time we end up owning another asset. Well, you're going to see here, the rules that are behind that, but I think it's important that you understand that basic concept, because it's under these 2 sections of the IRS that allow us and afford us the ability to do that. So, the most unique feature of permanent life insurance is that under these 2 codes, 72E and 7702, that the cash inside of the insurance contract is tax advantage. Not only can the cash value accumulate tax-free, but the cash can also be accessed tax-free. Hence the beauty and magic of life insurance. It is a unique vehicle that allows tax-free accumulation, allows you to access your money tax-free, and when you die, blossoms in value and transfers income tax-free. I will often say this to clients. It's typically, in my experience, it's the single greatest gift that Congress has ever handed the American taxpayer, if properly designed. Now, it's not for everybody. It depends on your circumstances, but dealing with somebody that understands this can help, to develop or create another asset class. So if somebody really wants to get into the weeds and look at that law a little closer, this is the textbook that you should go to. This is a college textbook that is handed to the actuaries. It is not for the faint of heart. It is not light or easy reading. This book costs about $200 now. If you want to find out and learn everything you wanted to know about cash value life insurance, net amount at risk, that's the place to go. But this is the executive summary on how this works. Right? Index universal life is a type of cash value life insurance. And before I get into Kai-Zen and how to pay for it, I want you to understand why. So if we have a place to put our money and we're not necessarily doing it for the death benefit, where can we put our money? Well, let's say that we had two accounts running side by side, and both accounts, one's in equities and the other's in a cash value life insurance, and it's already there. And we put in 100 grand. At the end of one period, both of those accounts got 10%. Just let's forget about fees. Let's just keep the returns equal. At the end of it, they would have performed identically. Now, the difference between cash value life insurance is that it's not in the market. That's a mistake that a lot of people assume, is that, oh, you're going to be in the market, it's going to be at risk. No, because, and again, I won't get into the technicalities, but I can certainly educate you on this. That somebody in the market with all the risks, like today, right, when the market falls out, right, because Jerome Powell decides to continue to say, hey, listen, spook the market, or, the markets are concerned about inflation or any of a number of factors, right? What goes up could come down. Well, if the market goes down 10%, today it was only down about $500, $600, or 500 or 600, right? We want to make sure that our money is protected, especially if we're using it for retirement, right? So down 10%, 10% of 110 is 99. So you're actually less than what you started with. Somebody in an IUL, again, fees being aside, IUL stands for Index Universal Life, right? Would not lose a nickel because it's not in the market. Now, not every year is going to be 10%. So maybe next year's 5%. And again, this is just an example, but 5%, right? Well, now the person on the bottom in the mutual fund with all the risks, and this is typically akin to a 401k or an IRA or a brokerage statement. Now they're at 103,950, where somebody in an IUL now had was able to capture all the upside, right? The only trade-off with somebody in an IUL is something called a cap. Right. And that brings me to the next slide. But in this example, there's a 9% delta or differential here. Now, we'll go back to that number 115,500. And again, this is really the secret sauce of Index Universal Life, because over time, money doesn't work in a straight line, right? It doesn't typically, if you look at your accounts, you'll see history showing graphs like this that are up, they're down. They're never just straight across, which is how most projections run. But if I take that 115,500 and let's say the index that this was tied to was at 940 at the time, well, the bottom dropped out similar to 2008 or maybe a market correction, and it dropped 30%. Somebody in the market lost 30% of their portfolio. But in an IUL, there's a floor, so it doesn't. And now the new bottom is 650. And like I said, this was the secret sauce. And one of the things that I've constantly educated the public on is that, people will say, well, it didn't go up all the way. It doesn't need to. 650, you're not even back to even here A 10% cap, only get to 920, caps out at 10%. And in this example, the 115,500 versus a mutual fund, now it's at 127,050. And this is the strategy behind it, right? So that's how an IUL works. And now what we're going to do is shift our thinking to Kai-Zen, right? Because this is how you can buy an IUL for yourself personally, create an asset class. We can certainly run those numbers for you. But one thing we have to really ask ourselves, why should we put that IUL in place as an asset class? And it really depends on how you answer this question. Do you think taxes in the future will be lower, the same, or higher? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. But I am telling you that almost every single time I show someone this slide, before I show them this slide, they typically write down income taxes. Most people, if I poll an audience, 100 out of 100 will typically say higher. Every once in a while, I'll have that person put their hand up. Oh, I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket when I retire. And if you are, God bless you, right? But most people that we run across will typically run higher. Well, if that's the case, deferring in places like a 401k, an IRA, a TSP, right? Does that really make sense? Especially when you look at supporting data. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen this graph. This graph is a real-time running calculator of America's debt. I've taken a snapshot of this, and you can go there right now, and I'll show it when we switch over to our live utilization of Kai-Zen, usdebtclock.org. There's a lot of data here. I don't expect you to interpret it all, but this number here on the left is right now what the U.S. owes, right, in excess of 31 trillion with a T dollars. This is our debt obligation, but that's not everything that we owe. Right now, combined Americans collectively, every household, it's amassed at about 93 trillion. And then, you take in what's the government bringing in taxes, even with everything they got going on, we're in a little north of $4.5 trillion. You don't need to be a math major to understand that this country has a spending problem. I've been showing this chart since 2006, 2007, and the numbers were about 5 or 6 trillion when I first started showing it. So, in 20 years, less than 20 years, this is how much debt this country has amassed. We have a problem on the horizon, and not putting tax strategies in place is a real concern. So if you think that you're behind on your retirement, you've been following the herd, you've been following the group mentality and putting everything into a 401k without giving thought to some type of exit strategy of your account and how that will be taxed in the future, you could be making a small mathematical mistake. That being said, here's the Kai-Zen disclosure before I switch over. The Kai-Zen strategy is dependent on the client making contributions for the first 5 years, therefore not defaulting on the policy, which would result in a policy lapse and surrender charges. The client will not have access to the policy cash values, the death benefits, or the living benefits until the loan is repaid and the assignment is released. The lender has the right to discontinue funding new premiums, exit the market, or to demand loan repayment based on the terms and conditions signed by the master trust. See the master trust documents for detail. So I want you to understand that that's our disclosure. Before I end, I'm going to take us to Kai-Zen, and I want us to watch. So this is the video, and then I'll take us through. You're going to have access. If you want to do and play around with numbers, I just look at what I've come to know to be true.
When it comes to retirement, executives often think investing in stocks and other investments will provide enough income to maintain their current lifestyle for the average 22-year retirement. In most cases, this ends up not providing the means to maintain their lifestyle throughout retirement. And when they come to this realization, it's too late to do anything about it. Most highly compensated people don't start saving until their 40s, missing out on years of compounding interest. This result is a significant loss in retirement funds, and in their 40s, most are saving about 9% of their income. So how much should you be saving if you want to maintain your current lifestyle in retirement? 33% of your income. There's got to be another way to meet retirement goals without having to use a third of your income during your career. Introducing Kai-Zen. Kai-Zen is a proactive strategy that gives you access to extra money up front, providing you the potential to earn more for your retirement, protecting your future income without putting a drain on your current way of living. This strategy helps you maintain your current lifestyle in the event of chronic illness, premature death, or inability to sufficiently save for retirement. Traditional retirement plans are typically insufficient for high-income earners. Kai-Zen is different because it makes the use of leverage without the need for participant loans, interest payments, or personal guarantees. One of the greatest advantages of leverage is it provides an opportunity to significantly enhance your ability to save for retirement. Experts agree, when used correctly, leverage is a very powerful retirement tool. Even Forbes says you can leverage your way to a richer retirement. Your contributions are matched by the lender for the first 5 years. Then, the lender uses that as a security for the additional funds for the next 5 years. The contributions are used to fund a cash accumulation life insurance policy. A minimum amount is used to purchase the death benefits and living benefits, while the majority of the cash is used to maximize your potential tax advantage growth. What could be better? Kai-Zen also has unique cash accumulation features within the policy. When a market index like the S&P has growth, it is calculated and credited to you. Once gains are credited, they cannot decline due to market losses. This helps keep your money safe. Would you rather have this in retirement or the potential for 60 to 100% more retirement income with Kai-Zen? Secure your lifestyle with Kai-Zen. More money, more protection, and more confidence.
Now I'm going to take us to, Ilya is the interactive learning information assistant that if you took a screenshot of that QR code, it will bring you to here and you'll be able to play around and estimate my benefit. I'm going to take the time and do that real quick, right? And let's just say I'm going to take a 48-year-old male. And what you're able to do is just right now, this is a slider. You can decide how much money you want to put in. Sometimes part of my job is finding the money. And at a bare minimum, what I counsel folks is, look, if you agree taxes are going to be higher in the future, that's your strong suspicion, right? Then let's take money that you were overfunding your 401k or IRA, and let's redirect that into a product like this. But keep in mind, Kai-Zen, right? As I mentioned in the disclosure, you don't have access to that money for 15 years. So if you're 50, then you can't really touch it until you're 65. It's not that you can't do it at 60 or 65, right? That's about the limit where it probably doesn't make sense. But then we will use other assets to unwind until you can relieve the loan on this and then start your income stream tax-free. But I digress. Let me just show you that 35,000 view the estimate. You'll be able to come in here and you can see, just like the video displayed, for 5 years, you're getting a match, and then they put in 100% of the premium in years 6 through 10. So your contributions in this example, 175,000, right? Versus that was at $35,000 a year, versus they put in 409,410 for a total combined. Now, this is where I was given the house analogy. You were able to buy or leverage your retirement just like you would a house, right? So now you can come in and go, look, what are my benefits and distributions? Well, now in this example, this person's able to get $45,000 a year. Plus, let's say they apply for their Social Security, which is typically subject to provisional income from most sources. We've now avoided some of the taxation that could have happened to our Social Security in retirement at a time when we've lost most deductions. In this example, an internal rate of return is not too shabby of 8.5. And then based on that, cumulative distributions, $1.1 million, right, with the remaining death benefit of $585. This is just an example of what Kai-Zen can do. But what I really like about this is that, again, we can go to the comparison. You can look at your, if you did a traditional non-finance, right, we just would probably end up with less money. This is just helping folks on this call to understand that Kai-Zen should be a consideration for most. But one of the things I like about Ilya is that you can ultimately come in and start to do a custom design. You can come in and say, well, suppose I want to pay off the loan earlier, or what if I want to take distributions later, right? This will allow you to do all that. And you can start to say, hey, if I play around with these numbers, this tool will allow you to start to do that. I'm not going to get into the customization because this is really designed for you, the person that might be interested, to be able to go in, log in, not have any pressure. Hey, maybe it's not for you. Maybe you won't qualify. Maybe you just decided you want to, keep things the way they are. But I did want to show one last thing for details. I have this is not a carrier illustration. This is by NIW, who is the manufacturer of Kai-Zen, or the creator. And this just took a 48-year-old male. The minimum death benefit it would be $1 million in this example. And then just like we saw, they were putting in money for the first 5 years, getting it matched. Their premium, not the 33 or the 35, but it was 33 in this example. Again, we could go 35, we could go, 1.5 million, 2 million, whatever the person wants. But this is what I wanted to show you was the ledger, right? Because this is what a lot of people look at and they say, well, I put in what was the loan rate, or we're now showing that, LIBOR plus or SOFR plus 1.75, right? We're already stress testing and putting in the cost of borrowing. What you have to remember is that, for years, right, we were only able to show X amount of dollars. But now with interest rates going up, well, caps have started to increase. So last year, this time, the most we were able to illustrate was like 5.4, maybe 6%. Well, now this illustration is at 7.04% and will likely go higher as they continue to raise interest rate. So even though the cost of borrowing has gone up, because that will be somebody's typical question as well, what if interest rates go up? They're going to go up, but so are caps. And so when that happens, right, all we need to do is get 1% better than the borrowing rate long term. The average of Kai-Zen, and Kai-Zen was put into place in 2012, and looking at past data, one of the head actuaries at one of the largest insurance companies has stood up on the stage and said their research has showed that they've been at 2%. So, when things go up, the interest rates go up, the cost of borrowing goes up. Here's basically the thing in this example you want to see. The loan is relieved in year 15. The bank got paid back, right? And then how much will they get? 47 grand a year, tax-free. And there's the internal rate of return. These are examples. But you know what, compared to, and I run side by side, I do comprehensive financial planning, and listen, I manage assets, right? So if somebody wants to be in an IRA, a rollover IRA, their 401k at work, right? All those things, I absolutely will equate taxation into the solution. And so if we're looking at that, in order to be able to match apples to apples, what I've seen time and time again, even the best laid plans have an enormous pressure put on them with taxation. And it's that cumulative tax over time that I start to bring to the forefront to make people aware. If we can start to build out into our assets that we're holding some type of tax-free solution, in my experience, it's been very, very successful, and it's a great alternative to traditional wisdom. So that was my share on Kai-Zen. One last thing I want to talk about. Sorry, I hit stop share.